Okay, well, hello again. So it's week 3 now in our online program for February on our movie theme. What movies can tell us about what it means to be addicted and what it means to get recovery. And this week's movie is one of my favorites. It's like a who's who cast of Hollywood. It's got like Sean Penn playing the main character, Kevin Spacey's in there, just lots of good actors. And it's called Hurlyburly. It's actually a play written by David Rabe, very famous, set in the 1980s. The movie version's the 1990s, by the way. And Rabe, the playwright, actually wrote the movie, so it's a pretty accurate version of the play. At any rate, oh, by the way, too, we got a copy of it here. This is the only treatment center in North America that would actually have a copy of Hurlyburly because there's lots of drugs in it. There's an underage prostitute. The guys are all macho types. They seem to all hate women. At any rate, the reason that this movie is important for our theme is that it really highlights this idea that life is meaningless, monotonous, and boring. And how do you deal with that? So all the characters in the play, they're all like Hollywood types, but they're not the big shots. They're like little guys. And by the way, too, I got a friend who went down to Hollywood a few years back, and he told me it's exactly like that. He said he couldn't stand the place. He said everything's so superficial. When he would go to a party, he wants to have a party, but he said everyone else there, they're just there to tell stories and, oh, I met Steven Spielberg, or I met this person, I met that person. In fact, it drove him so crazy. He came back to Canada after, I don't think he even made it 2 years, but he just couldn't handle it. He said the whole thing is just so superficial. But at any rate, this play uses the setting of the Hollywood businesses to highlight this. But all the characters, they're living lives that, again, as Narcotics Anonymous says, meaningless, monotonous, and boring. And this one character, especially Eddie, played by Sean Penn, he's trying to figure out, like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is life? And now, to warn you, it's based on a play, and plays have a lot more talking than movies, but so that's movies are real, what we call it, a talkie. So lots of language, but the language is just so inane, so meaningless. They're talking. I even wrote it in the online program. Gave you a very short little section of the movie where basically Sean Penn and Kevin Spacey are having this discussion about things, and Sean Penn makes the comment is, well, I know what I'm saying, but I don't know what it means. In fact, I'm a lot better off than most people because they say stuff and they think they know what it means when they really don't. But it just goes on and on like that. But it's this concept, again, that I think is fundamental for us to understand about the nature of addiction. That, again, I mean, didn't hear anywhere in the movie that some medical doctor saying, oh, you have a disease over which you are powerless or anything. No, this is dealt with at a very human level. Here are human beings struggling to make sense of their lives, to figure out what they're doing on the planet. And with Sean Penn, I mean, the only way this guy can even exist is by just dumping tons of drugs into his body, because that at least allows him to exist. Because if he didn't have the drugs, my God, what would life be like? He'd probably commit suicide in a second. And Sean Penn is really plunging towards hitting bottom. And then the movie really highlights this idea, though, that Narcotics Anonymous made famous, but Bill W. certainly believed in it, and Viktor Frankl and my mentor and a whole bunch of other people say drug use is a response to living life that clean and sober just has no bang. You just don't feel alive. You don't feel you're accomplishing things. You don't feel you're worthwhile and important. But when you use the drugs, yeah, now I can deal with it. So again, I would invite you to watch it. Now, a warning, there are lots of drugs in this, and if you are triggered very easily, then I suggest maybe, renting it a few months down the road. But it is a very good description of what the addiction is really all about. And then you can figure out that what maybe you're going to need to do in order to get recovery is to address that belief, that feeling that, well, life kind of sucks, so you're going to have to figure out something in your life that you can do to make yourself feel alive without the drugs, because the drugs, all they'll do is backfire on you. Just like Sean Penn, he's just plunging towards, and he's going to hit his bottom for sure. Anyway, again, as always, we have the written portion of the online program on the website, so there's some questions for you there. Read through it, and we'll talk to you next week.